It is a rainy Saturday morning, and I feel like I've accomplished so much today. I feel like I've done what is necessary to get started and have a wonderful day. What are all those things? We'll explore them here. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. So, I will admit, there are times I don't vacuum, I don't clean, I don't do the household management things that are necessary to have the joy and excitement and ease of living that I truly desire. And I want to share with you today both my experiences, the advice that has been given to me, and some of the mindset elements that are necessary to stay on track with these critical elements. Now, many of you may know that I'm starting more of the intentional thrift, and I'm going more for a minimalist lifestyle, because what I've found over the years is that as clutter builds up, it becomes a distraction. It takes away from the day-to-day activities that need to be done. It becomes one more thing that distracts. And I've had the opportunity here and there to be in environments that were simple and had each item in its place. So I don't know if you've had the experience. You go into the garage and you can't find anything. There are piles of this, there's piles of that, there's projects you started and haven't finished, there's projects you'd like to start, there's some materials that are perfectly good materials, by the way, and I'm glad I picked it up off the side of the road because I'm going to build something with that, yet ultimately it becomes a distraction. It becomes a clutter. So a couple years ago, I hired a kid down the street to come over, and we pulled everything out of the garage. Everything out of the garage. We sorted it, sifted it. We did throw quite a bit of things away. We had found materials that were partially used, and it was like the small bit of a deck sealer in a barrel that's, it wasn't closed up all the way and it's all hardened and everything. It's got to go. And by taking everything out, there was almost this therapeutic feeling. Now, there were times, by the way, I just told the kid, if you think it's trash, throw it in the back of the truck and I'll take it to the dump. Don't show me another item. Don't show me another, please. If it looks like trash, just throw it away, because I was having a lot of anxiety. Okay, because there were some nursery pots in there that I really I was going to use, and definitely they're in good condition. Kid threw them in the back of the truck, and then fortunately when I was at the dump, I recovered them. But the majority of the items that if this kid or someone in your family thinks is trash, it likely is trash. Now, again, a lot of guys listen to this podcast. There are building materials, pipes and boards, and especially if you're on a homestead, that you will use eventually, and you'll be grateful that you've got them. I know you've got those jars of bolts and stuff like that. The old nails that all they need is a couple little taps with a hammer, and they'll be perfectly good nails. Those items need to be organized. So here's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about a little bit of household management and some of the times that this household management needs to be done in order to have better efficiency. Because if you have a bunch of good materials in the garage, if you have pantry items and you don't get to use them because they're unorganized, then it's as good as not having them at all. Have you ever been in a situation where you needed something, couldn't find it, and then a month later you find a damn thing after you've already gone to the store to buy something? So we're in a modern society. It's very easy to just go buy an item. In fact, Lowe's technically, or Home Depot, or whatever store you go to, is technically a giant warehouse of the materials you might need in the future. And you can, of course, buy those materials as they come along, and it's not tremendously expensive. But as we talk about intentional thrift, as we talk about reusing, recycling, upcycling, there are times where you're going to have to store materials. So I've come up with 9 key tips to kind of go into that household management. And really, this is more related to number 2 tip, but the organization of your environment facilitates the outcomes that you desire. That's the key theme. So number 1 is to clean the toilet. So cleaning of your toilet is kind of the least likely or the least happy job to do. Okay, so it's a metaphor. And it's that thing that needs to be done, that if done, you'll feel better about it. Nobody wants to sit on a toilet that's got like nasty stains in it and stuff. And then also it's the thing that if someone else saw the condition it was in, that you'd be embarrassed. So the first thing we want to do in household management is we want to do the most difficult thing, the most pressing thing, the thing that is most likely to be ignored. Now, why would we do this? Well, many times the management of our households is an exercise to build up our strength, our focus, and our understanding. And so if you're going to take on and tackle the most difficult thing or the least desirable thing first, it is now out of the way, and you've just confirmed for yourself that there isn't anything else that needs to be done that is worse than the thing you've already accomplished. It's really a boost of self-esteem. It's really a push forward, kind of a momentum. It's kind of like if you were in a fight, knocking out the biggest guy first. Okay, you get jumped, there's 4 or 5 guys. They're all scary, but there's one that's more scary than the others. You knock that guy down, everybody else is going to fall in the line. You clean the toilet, make sure your bathroom, make sure your hygiene area is clean. And you do that every day if you need to. You do that with consistency. And then you know that anything else is minor compared to that, and you can easily just knock it out of the way. Number 2, and this is kind of where I was getting at with the garage story there, is organize your shoes. So shoes are a tiny thing. They're usually by your front door, or they're in a closet somewhere. By organizing your shoes is putting things in their place. And it really goes into the workshop, into the house, into the pantry. If you need a pair of shoes, you need to have them ready, in place, organized, ready to go. Now, if someone comes to your home, you don't want them tripping over your shoes as they're coming in the house. You don't want to walk your muck boots into the house. You want to have a place for your shoes so that when you need them, they're readily available. If you got woken up in the middle of the night and you had to run out to, maybe you hear a chicken squawking or something out there in the coop, and you got to grab something and head on out there and take care of it. Are you going to be out there in your slippers because you couldn't find your shoes? You didn't have things ready? Or are you going to be boots on, ready to go and take care of that raccoon? Organizing your shoes. Again, these 9 points are metaphors. They're really about a mindset of household management so that your home serves you. And now there's a lot of people that are living in 10,000 square foot homes, 5,000 square foot homes, and they're tired of cleaning the thing. They're frustrated. But again, if you put the shoes in their place, if you put each thing in its place, and it's ready when you need it, then you're going to be in a better situation. Number 3, a clean kitchen. That's what I did this morning. I woke up and it was rainy outside, and usually before breakfast I'll do a little bit of chores and stuff, but it's just pouring down rain, and so I decided, first thing, I cleaned the kitchen. I washed all the dishes, and unfortunately there were dishes in the sink. Really, I'm better at explaining what should be done and reminding myself what should be done than always getting it done, and that's just why we start building these management habits. But essentially, I scrubbed down everything in the kitchen except for the stove. I didn't scrub down the stove because I was right after I cleaned up everything. I dried a bunch of dishes, put them away, and then fixed breakfast. But there's some like an emotional endorphin, just a feeling. Throw on some music, clean the kitchen top to bottom, and you just know that food is, when you prepare it, there's nothing to do. You just get this stuff out and prepare it, and then you put it away and clean up, and you're done. The kitchen is clean. The kitchen is not attracting any pests. The kitchen has, kind of a nicer smell about it. Your compost isn't all stinking the place up. Again, part of household management is making sure that the place that you prepare food is in good condition. Now, you'll notice a lot of these household management things are about hygiene. They're about, organizing your things so that you can get better use out of them. It's about food safety. And really, these are the basics. There's so many distractions that we have these days that actually keep us from doing the basics. And that because it's just so easy to watch some more YouTube videos, or it's so easy to sit on the couch, we're actually atrophying, where our bodies are falling apart because we're not doing the core elements that are necessary to have a healthy, happy life. Let's talk about number 4, sweep the floors. if you ever find yourself without something to do, you don't really know what you're going to do, even if the floors are clean. I've had this advice so often, and I find it relaxing in a bit. And in fact, it's a little weird at sometimes, I guess, because if I go to like a friend's workshop or something, and we're just talking, I'll just grab a broom and start sweeping the floor, because the sweeping is almost like meditative. And so sweeping the floors gives you a chance to be with your mind, okay? Because a lot of us are really distracting ourselves with TV, the next video, the next thing, the next shiny object. When you take time to breathe, sweep the floors, organize the area. So your floors have to be kind of clear. And I'm looking in my house. If you see what I'm seeing right now, you know that there's things to be done. But ultimately, by just each day, taking a room, sweeping it up, cleaning it up, run the vacuum if you want. But ultimately, it's about, again, that space. Is it clutter-free? Is it dust-free? See, we're facing so many allergies today. We're facing so many household pollutants today that I'm really advocating for smaller homes that are easy to clean up, and then more outdoor time, more outdoor space. Now, yes, there are pollutants and allergens outside, but we're tending our environment to provide for us the very best. Now, that leads us to number 5, to get more from less. Right now, I'm in a kick of selling off all the furniture that hasn't been used in about a year. So I go around the house. The guest bedroom hasn't had anybody in it in probably a year. There's some chairs that have accumulated items. The kid just throws papers on it. I don't know. I'm going to have to listen to this podcast while I'm cleaning the house, because as I'm sharing this with you and stressing the importance of household management, I'm seeing stuff around the room that I'm in that needs to be cleaned up. And again, because you can build up this positive energy, it's not an anxiety producing activity. It's, hey, if I take 5 minutes, I could tidy this room up. I could feel great about it. I could really get this area to the next level. And then when I need something that's stored in this particular room, I'll be able to find it easily. But again, if you have items that are multi-purpose, so I've got a KitchenAid over here. I don't know why I'm pointing. I'm on a podcast, but I'm pointing over to the KitchenAid on the side over here. It's set up nice and neat where it needs to be. I know where all the attachments are, but it's one piece of equipment that does multiple things. I don't have a bunch of little hand mixers everywhere that, I can do it like that. Now, I found there's some large basins that I use now when I make bread and things. These large basins are more flexible than having smaller bowls, and so I can also use the basin when I'm washing vegetables. I could use the basin, of course, to make large amounts of bread. I could use the basins when I'm preparing for making a sauerkraut or a fermentation. Again, get more from less. Number 5, mending and thrift. Now, I used to sew a lot, and I can sew on buttons and things like that. I started learning about shishigos. It's like a running stitch for mending clothes. It's a Japanese style stitching that works within the mending culture of Boro. I wrote a couple articles about this, but basically, if you get a tear in your pants and you repair it now rather than later, you can still get a lot of wear out of those pants. So again, it's part of that get more from less, but that mending is the clothing almost gains a story and an experience that is being embroidered into your clothing, and you start getting more use out of the clothing gains more culture, but you're now in a situation where you can go, especially for your work clothes, you can just go to Goodwill and get some clothing and then get 5, 10, maybe even more years out of stuff. I have clothes that are older than I am. But now you're not having to spend money to replace things. One of the challenges in our culture today is that clothing and a lot of these items are considered disposable, and they are all ultimately cheaply made, so they don't last very long. But if you take the time to go out and invest in quality clothing with a good natural fiber or a good fiber system, and you put patches on the elbows because you've been working out in the field, and you're driving a truck or something, or patches in the knees, and you get another season out of a set of clothing, then you can afford to buy better quality clothing that breaks less. And so this mending and thrift culture ultimately produces for you more life from the things that you have rather than constantly going back and forth to the store and buying new stuff. Now, we got a Rural King here that has some decent quality clothing in it. Basically, if I'm buying new clothing, I'm buying workwear. And that's strange because I work in a professional environment or so-called professional environment, and a lot of folks are expecting me to show up in a suit and tie, and I have a suit and tie. But ultimately, when I'm outside of a workplace where I need a suit and tie, I'm wearing overalls because them overalls are comfortable, and those overalls last a long time, and it's only basic maintenance that's necessary. I'm not sewing things all the time because I went and bought a decent pair of overalls. I didn't buy a Walmart special overalls. I got decent overalls. So mending and thrift, number 5. Number 6, actually, looks like there's only 8 here. We're going to go to number 6. Nope, 6 is mending and thrift. Number 7. Oh my gosh. And this is kind of get more on what you have, but reuse what you have. I used to, and I shared the story, try to recycle everything that came into the household. And long story short, what ended up happening is I ended up with piles and piles of boxes and boxes of glass jars and plastic containers and other things that I couldn't readily go and recycle. I had to take them quite a distance away to recycle them because my area didn't have the facilities for it. And this was good though because I could use a jar. If I got a good jar with a good lid on it, I could use it multiple times. I'm still using yogurt containers that are years old when I have, if the kid's painting on a project or something, I could just use those. But I can't have the clutter, and we've talked about this. So what I've figured out is an actual better approach is to, yes, reuse what you've got, but don't bring into your house cheap and disposable items. So I would rather go, and I cruise the thrift stores sometimes if I need something, and I usually are buying like stainless steel bowls instead of the plastic bowls. I'm buying good quality, coffee mugs and things like that, rather than buying cheap stuff. And so even when I go to the store to buy like canned goods, I don't buy the canned goods. I'm going to go to the Rural King. I'm going to go to the Amish store or something and get something in a good old mason jar because that fit and form of a wide mouth jar has so many other uses. So what you'll discover, and I don't know if you see it in some of the videos, but like my okra seeds that I saved from last year, they're in a mason jar. I put a couple of those oxygen absorbers in it, and it works great. But I didn't go buy that jar specifically. I bought a product, used the inside of it, and I paid for the jar anyway. And then I clean the jar up and I reuse it. Now the key is like size materials. So you don't want 50 different sizes of jars. You want to be choosing products that are in wide mouth jars, quality jars, straight side jars, no fancy shapes or anything like that. And then the same goes for like when you're buying bowls and pots and stuff like that. You want to get a larger size so you can reuse the container. But again, if you're not bringing it in the house, it can't clutter up the house. And if you are bringing it in the house and it has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 uses for it, then you're getting more from the space that you have. Number 8, and I think I've relayed this a couple times, but understand that cheap has a price. So things that are cheap are going to wear out and go away. You buy a cheap pair of boots, you got a pair of Uggs, and you're out there in the garden with them. And next thing you know, you got to buy another pair. Now that's by design. There's planned obsolescence in a lot of products that we have today. But a good pair of boots, a good pair of pants, a good shirt is going to last you for a long time, especially if you're mending, especially if you're being a good steward of it. But cheap has a price. We love cheap technology. But do you know that the lithium batteries in your devices are mined by children in developing countries? And when they're not mined by children, they're mined by adults with an extremely high death rate associated with job site accidents. So, people say, they're all worried about slavery that happened a long time ago. I'm worried about slavery that's happened today. And we should be mindful that the devices we have, that the technology that we're using is very often built on rare earth metals and materials that are obtained in a questionable way. Now, these countries, it is necessary that they go through these series in order to develop, but and there's a whole political commentary associated with this. But the faster these countries can modernize at least their mining, the safer it can be, especially for all of us. But many times, the cheap green New Deal type thing is actually worse for you than either not getting something or focusing your time and energy on quality elements. So it's better to have a few quality things than many quality things, or many cheap things. I guess if you have a lot of quality things too, it can eventually become a trouble as well. Anyway, let's go number 9. Number 9 is the most chilling, the relaxing, the fun, the experiential part that makes all of this come together. So in your household management, by growing your own food and by growing your own flowers, you're going to find a lot of joy, a lot of excitement, and a lot of experience, especially family experiences. And I like to grow my own food because then I know where the food came from. I like to partner with local farmers. So if you don't have space to grow your own, you can go volunteer at someone else's farm. And many CSA programs, that's community sponsored agriculture, have the opportunity for you to do work shares. But getting out and understanding where the food comes from. Now, I like growing the flowers because it's nice to have a little color in the house. It's also nice, girlfriend, wife, spouse, whatever. You can have that brightness, that smile. It's also great for beneficial insects that will come along and pollinate your food. But all of this really is about understanding what went into something. In a modern culture, we very often ignore the fact that there's a lot of effort that goes into putting a calorie on the table. There's people that are in difficult and awkward situations. There are farmers that have very little margins. There are pollutants and manufacturing processes. There are people, sometimes food travels around the world before it gets to your plate. Understanding this, being mindful of this, being cognizant of this starts with how you manage your household. Now, for many years, I had a housekeeper, and 2 housekeepers would come in and clean the whole house and clean the toilets and everything, because I just figured I cleaned toilets for 20-some years. I don't want to clean toilets anymore. But ultimately, are you able to humble yourself enough to do these activities, even if you can afford to have somebody else do them? Are you a good steward of these things so that even after the person has put the effort in, you can at least maintain the quality? So that's like a parent cleaning the house. Do the kids have the discipline and skills to maintain the cleanliness of the house? And then are you able to get more from what you've got so that now instead of spending money, you're now circulating the money and you're exchanging it for goods that are now not depleting, but actually gaining value over time? And then ultimately, do you understand that cheap has a price? Cheap food is very often has low nutritional value. Cheap energy very often has pollution. Cheap technology very often has questionable labor practices. Folks, we have more control over our lives than you can imagine, and we have more power in our lives than you can imagine. I know at times it feels like everything is falling apart, but ultimately, in your household, how you manage your home will give you focus, will give you energy, will give you outcomes, and it starts with these 9 core elements. Now, you'll see there's a lot of overlap in these elements, but ultimately it's about building yourself into a stronger person, building your family into a stronger family, and building your community. The rest of the world can burn, but if your community is strong, if your family is strong, and you are strong, you will persevere, you will overcome, and you will succeed. So I want to thank you for listening to this program. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. You can write with your questions to www.prosperityhomestead.org. Go to the contact page, ask your questions. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions in an upcoming podcast or just write back to you. But ultimately, we also have a newsletter. So we are about you getting more from your land, getting more from your home, getting more from what you have. There's so many pressures on you today to have more, but often if you have more, you end up with less. I want you to have more of what matters. I want you to have more discipline. I want you to have more experience. I want you to have more financial security. I want you to have more food security. Outside of that, the rest of the stuff can just go on its own. It'll take care of itself. Again, I want to thank you for being a part of this podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode. And this has been about core keys to household management.